It started like any other quiet weekend. The kind where you curl up on the couch, drink coffee a little too slowly, and enjoy the silence. I remember thinking how peaceful everything felt. No work emails, no deadlines, just me in my cozy little apartment, finally safe and alone. Or at least, I thought I was alone. Looking back now, it's chilling how wrong I was. My name's Hannah. I had just moved into a new place after a rough breakup. It wasn't anything fancy, just a modest one-bedroom rental on the second floor of an older building. But it felt like freedom. I was rebuilding, piece by piece, trying to find myself again. The landlord, Mark, seemed decent enough when I signed the lease. Polite. Helpful. Maybe a little too friendly at times, but I brushed it off. After all, it was just small talk, right? He lived downstairs, and every so often he'd stop by to ask if everything was working okay. I didn't think much of it. I just appreciated that someone cared enough to check in. At first, it was innocent. He'd bring up packages, offer to fix a leaky faucet, or help carry groceries if he saw me struggling. He had that older, confident charm that made you feel like things were under control when he was around. And after what I'd been through, that felt comforting. I'll admit, I let my guard down. I started opening up, letting him into little parts of my life I usually kept private. We'd talk sometimes, nothing deep, but enough for him to get a glimpse into my world. He knew I lived alone, knew my routine, knew when I'd be home. Then, slowly, things started to shift. It began with text messages. Harmless at first. Just checking if your heater's working. Let me know if you need anything. But over time, they became more personal. Compliments that felt a bit too familiar. Jokes that crossed lines. I started feeling watched. One night, I came home to find my door slightly open. My heart dropped. I swore I had locked it. But there was no sign of a break-in, nothing missing. I convinced myself maybe I'd been careless. Still, that unease began to settle in. But nothing, and I mean nothing, could have prepared me for what happened next. It was a rainy Thursday night. I was curled up in bed, lights off, Netflix playing softly in the background. I heard a soft knock at the door. Then a voice. His voice. Mark. Saying something I couldn't quite make out. I froze. I hadn't called him. I hadn't asked for anything. So why was he here, uninvited, in the middle of the night? I crept to the door, looked through the peephole, and what I saw changed everything. That night marked the moment my quiet sanctuary became a stage for something far more twisted than I ever imagined. Because the truth? My landlord wasn't just being helpful. He was hiding something. And soon, I'd learn exactly what. I stood there, frozen, staring through the peephole. Mark was just standing outside my door, no umbrella, no jacket, just soaking wet like he didn't even notice the rain pouring down on him. He wasn't knocking anymore, just standing there in silence. For a minute, I thought maybe he needed help. Maybe something had happened downstairs. But then, why didn't he just say something? Why hadn't he called? My gut told me something was off, and I've learned not to ignore that feeling. I didn't open the door. I waited, heart racing, until eventually he walked away. I heard his footsteps slowly fading down the hallway. Still, I didn't move. I couldn't. My mind was going in 100 directions. Was this just a misunderstanding? Or had I missed something all along? That night, I barely slept. Every sound felt louder, every shadow longer. My once safe apartment now felt like a box closing in on me. The next morning, I tried to shake it off. Maybe he was just checking on something, I told myself. Maybe I was overthinking. But I couldn't deny the tension that had been building for weeks. The lingering glances. The times he showed up without warning. The way he always seemed to know when I was home. I started paying more attention. I noticed little things. My window blinds slightly tilted when I hadn't touched them. A faint smell of Mark's cologne in the hallway even when he wasn't around. I checked the locks twice, sometimes 3 times a night. I even started leaving a chair wedged under the door handle, just in case. I thought about telling someone, maybe a friend or my mom. But how do you explain something that hasn't technically happened? I didn't have proof. Just a feeling. And let's be honest, how often do people take women seriously when all we have is our instincts? Then, a few days later, something strange happened. I came home from work and noticed my kitchen light was on. I never leave it on. I walked through the apartment slowly, trying to stay calm. Everything seemed untouched. No signs of a break-in. But that light, something about it didn't sit right with me. I knew I had turned it off. I always did. I checked the door. It was locked. Windows, too. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone had been there. Watching. Waiting. Like a line had been crossed, and I didn't even know it yet. And I had no idea that the worst was still to come. The more I tried to carry on with my normal routine, the harder it became to ignore the growing unease in my chest. Something was wrong. Deep down, I knew it. I started noticing small changes around the apartment, nothing obvious, but enough to make me feel like I wasn't imagining things. A drawer left slightly open, a towel moved from where I'd left it, my bedroom door creaked open when I was sure I'd shut it. These weren't things I could explain away anymore. I decided to test a theory. Before leaving for work one morning, I placed a small piece of paper between the door and the frame, something no one would notice unless they opened the door. When I came back that evening, it was on the floor. My stomach dropped. I stood there staring at it, not even wanting to go inside. I kept asking myself, was Mark entering my apartment when I wasn't home? If so, why? What was he looking for? I couldn't prove anything. But I started keeping notes, documenting every little thing that seemed off. I even looked up legal options, but without evidence, there wasn't much I could do. I thought about installing a camera inside, but I was nervous it might be illegal in a rental space. And honestly, I wasn't sure I wanted to see what I might catch. Then came something that I couldn't ignore. I found a handwritten note on my kitchen table. It wasn't there in the morning. Just a small slip of paper that read, "You should lock your windows better." That was it. No name, no handwriting I could identify. Just those 7 words that made my whole body go cold. I didn't call the police. I don't even know why. I guess I was afraid they'd think I was paranoid. But I did tell someone, my friend Maya. She was the first person I opened up to. At first, she thought I was just on edge, still processing the breakup, the move. But when I showed her the note, she went quiet. "This isn't nothing," she said. "You need to take this seriously." And then she asked a question I hadn't thought about yet. What if he's been watching you this whole time? That question stuck with me. Because suddenly, it wasn't just about a break-in or a creepy landlord anymore. It felt bigger. More calculated. And I started wondering just how far this had already gone, without me even knowing. After that night, I started locking everything, windows, doors, even the bathroom, like it would somehow give me peace. But nothing helped. Every creak of the floorboard made me jump. Every gust of wind outside felt like a whisper of something coming closer. I barely slept. I'd lie awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, wondering if he was watching from the hallway. Or worse, already inside. Maya urged me to find a new place, but it wasn't that easy. I didn't have the money to break my lease, and honestly, part of me still wanted to believe I was just being paranoid. That maybe the note was some kind of sick prank. That Mark was just a weird guy, not dangerous. But that illusion shattered one night when I caught him in the hallway at 1 a.m., standing just outside my door. He didn't knock. Didn't speak. just stood there with his hands in his pockets like he was waiting. Watching. I waited, heart pounding, peeking through the peephole until he finally turned and walked downstairs. But that moment confirmed it. This wasn't just in my head anymore. This was real. I packed a small bag that night and went to stay at Maya's for a few days. I didn't tell Mark. I didn't even go back to grab anything else. I needed space to think. Space to breathe. While I was gone, Maya convinced me to set up a small camera inside the apartment. Just one. Hidden near the entryway, angled toward the living room and front door. I agreed. I didn't even care about the legal gray area anymore. I needed proof. Something to show someone that I wasn't just imagining all this. The next 2 days felt like years. I kept checking my phone, waiting for a motion alert from the camera. Nothing came. But on the third day, while I was sitting with Maya sipping cold coffee, my phone lit up with a notification. Motion detected, front door. I opened the app and watched in silence. There he was. Mark. Inside my apartment. No key fumble, no break-in, he just walked in, like he owned the place. Like he belonged there. He looked around, slowly, carefully. Then he did something that made my stomach twist. He walked over to the couch and picked up a framed photo of me and Maya from the side table. And he smiled. I dropped my phone. Maya looked up instantly. What? What happened? I couldn't even speak. I just pointed at the screen, hands shaking. She picked it up and stared, her eyes narrowing as the video played. We watched in complete silence as Mark calmly set the photo back down and wandered deeper into the apartment, like he was just inspecting his own space. But it was what he did next that truly knocked the air out of my lungs. He walked straight into my bedroom. It was like he knew exactly where to go. He didn't hesitate. He opened my closet, rifled through drawers, and then, he pulled out something I didn't even realize I had left behind. A shoebox from under my bed. One that held old letters, photos, and a small journal I used to write in when I was going through the breakup. I hadn't touched it in months. I watched in disbelief as he sat on the edge of my bed and opened it. He flipped through pages slowly, reading like it was a novel he'd been dying to get back to. Maya covered her mouth. He's obsessed with you, she whispered. This isn't just creepy anymore. This is dangerous. I felt cold all over. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. All that time I thought he was just hovering, just weirdly attentive. He was studying me. Heaping pieces of my life like trophies. Like I was some character in his private fantasy. And he wasn't just watching from a distance anymore. He was inside my world. Touching it. Claiming it. But the worst was still coming. Right as the video was about to end, Mark took out his phone. At first, it looked like he was texting. Then he turned the screen toward the camera, like he knew exactly where it was. Like he wanted to be seen. And on that screen was a photo of me. Sleeping. In my own bed. Maya gasped. That's not from now, is it? That's from before? I couldn't answer. My throat tightened. I hadn't stayed there in days. That photo was old. Which meant he'd already been in my apartment before. While I was there. While I was asleep. The thought made my entire body go numb. We didn't speak for a few seconds. Just sat there, letting it sink in. All this time, he had access to my life. He had watched, waited, and even walked in while I was vulnerable and unaware. I wanted to run. To scream. To disappear. But then, Maya asked the question that made my heart stop. Hannah, do you think he's been in my apartment too? Because what I didn't know then, but would soon find out, was that Mark's obsession didn't start with me. And it wasn't going to stop there. We didn't wait another second. Maya grabbed her keys, and we drove straight to the police station with the video saved on my phone and screenshots ready. I didn't care how it looked anymore. I wasn't paranoid, I had proof. We filed the report, handed over everything, and for the first time, someone actually listened. The officer looked serious as he watched the footage. He asked a few questions, then quietly left the room. About an hour later, we got word that they had gone to speak with Mark. But what they found shocked all of us. Mark's unit downstairs was practically untouched, neat, almost staged. But hidden inside a locked cabinet, they found a small collection of things that didn't belong to him. Items from different tenants, jewelry, letters, old photographs. But it wasn't just stuff from me. There were things from a woman who had lived there years before me. Her name was Sarah. I'd never met her, never even heard of her. But apparently, she had moved out suddenly and never left a forwarding address. When the police contacted her using old records, she admitted she left because Mark had started showing up unannounced, watching her too closely, asking personal questions about her love life. She'd felt uncomfortable but hadn't reported anything back then. She just packed up and left without a word. And now, years later, it seemed her story was repeating, through me. The police took Mark in for questioning. He denied everything at first, called it all a misunderstanding. Said he had keys as the landlord and had been checking the apartment for maintenance issues. But with the footage, the handwritten note, and now Sarah's testimony, things started to fall apart for him. That night, I finally returned to my apartment, with officers standing nearby, as I collected the rest of my things. I didn't want to spend another minute there. I could feel the walls closing in, the air still heavy with everything I didn't know had been happening right under my nose. I thought that was the end of it. I thought I could finally breathe again. But a week after I moved out, Maya called me, her voice low and shaking. "Check your mailbox," she said. "You got something weird." I drove over, and inside the box was a small envelope. No return address. Just my name written in all caps. I opened it right there in the parking lot. Inside was a single photo. It was a picture of me and Maya. Taken from outside her apartment window. We were inside, laughing, sitting on her couch, completely unaware. The timestamp on the back? It was from 2 days after Mark was arrested. And just like that, I realized the story wasn't over. Not even close. My hands were trembling as I held the photo. That familiar chill ran down my spine again, but this time, it wasn't just fear. It was anger. We had done everything right. Gone to the police, moved out, cut ties. But somehow, someone had still gotten close enough to take that picture. And if it wasn't Mark, then who? The police launched a follow-up investigation, and we gave them everything, the envelope, the photo, even the timestamp. They looked into whether Mark had anyone helping him, or if maybe someone else had picked up where he left off. But nothing concrete came back. No fingerprints. No camera footage from the street. It was like whoever left the photo wanted us to know we were being watched, but not who was watching. Still, things began to settle after that. Maya moved into a new building with a security gate and cameras on every floor. I found a smaller place in a quiet part of town, somewhere that felt safe again, even if just on the surface. It took weeks before I could sleep without checking every lock twice. And even now, part of me stays alert, trusting my gut more than ever. Mark eventually faced charges for trespassing and unlawful surveillance, though not everything could be proven. But the incident stayed on his record, and that gave me some peace. The landlord company replaced him quickly, and I heard later they were sued by another former tenant for negligence. Maybe the system didn't fix everything, but at least it started holding someone accountable. What this whole experience taught me, more than anything, is how easy it is to mistake discomfort for overthinking. How often women, especially, are made to feel dramatic or paranoid for simply trusting their instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is, and speaking up, even when you're not sure you'll be believed, can make all the difference. To anyone out there living alone, renting from someone they barely know, just remember, you don't owe silence to keep the peace. Your safety comes first. Always. So yeah. I thought I was safe. Until my landlord showed up. And even after he was gone, I realized how deep the fear could run. But I also learned something powerful: I wasn't alone. And I wasn't powerless. And neither are you. 40.